Hello and welcome to my review of The Garden by Elsie v. Aidinoff. So first I want to start by saying I've actually had this book since I was like 14 or 15. I don't really know. I'm pretty sure I read it back then, but I had no memory of it. So when it was time to do this prompt is for the group on Goodreads around the world around the year in 52 books, and this prompt is for In the Beginning. As you can probably tell from the cover, it is about the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, a serpent, and God. It is the story of the beginning of mankind, according to the Bible, from Eve's perspective, and the serpent is there as well. The serpent basically raises Eve while God raises Adam, and they're kind of split up in the garden, and they are kind of doing their own thing for a long time. So I've read this story from the Bible many, many years ago, and when I went back to read it after I read this book, for some reason I thought that the story of Adam and Eve was much longer. I don't know why. Probably because Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden and the forbidden fruit is such a prevalent theme in Western art. And like if you go to any art gallery, there's typically an Adam and Eve art piece. And for some reason, I got it in my head that it was longer. I think it's about 20 verses, and it's very simple, and there's not obviously a lot of information. It's very basic. It's, God created man, and then God created woman from man, and God said, here's your perfect garden. You will always live forever because of the tree of life. Don't eat from this tree because it's bad. Serpent seduces Eve to eat the fruit from that tree. She convinces Adam. They're kicked out of Eden. That's pretty much it, other than the legacy of their children, which is also very short. But to take something so small and with no information and to expand it into a book is a pretty bold idea. It's also really bold to write a story like this where not everyone, especially God, is painted in the best light. God in this book is a very interesting character. He's not... I don't know what people think of when they think of God, I guess. I guess we all have our own ideas. But in this story, he's very temperamental, excited. He can be nice, but he has more little negative traits than I would say positive traits, just because he doesn't understand humans, I think. So a lot of the reviews I read, the negative ones took kind of umbrage with that God was painted in a meh light, while the serpent is painted as very intelligent, understanding, and kind. A lot of people believe that the serpent is a representation of the devil. So there's a lot that people disagree with in this book if they are religious a little bit, I think. I personally am not, so I was just kind of neutral about the whole thing. But I did think it was an interesting idea to flesh out the serpent, who is mentioned for 2 seconds in the Bible. Most of the book is what I'm going to call a slice of life kind of style. You watch Eve learn and grow. I'm not exactly sure how old she's supposed to be when the book starts. I'm going to guess preteen, because the serpent does say she's just a child or things like that at first, and then as the book goes on a little bit, he implies that she's just past childhood, so I'm kind of viewing that as like teenage years. So you watch her learn about everything, and Eve learns how to make everything in Eden. She makes clothing, she makes cheese, I think she makes wine at some point, maybe. And towards the end, she ends up making silk. There's a lot of things that she makes, while we do get a little bit of Adam, and from what I saw, he can build a house and some basketball type balls. There are things that I think are cool to explore as well, like every living being in the garden is vegetarian. So obviously Adam and Eve and the serpent are vegetarian. And all the animals in the garden are vegetarian as well. So even though there are things like tigers and such, they aren't hunting other animals or hunting Adam or Eve. They are just kind of hanging out, which I kind of like because it's something I never thought about. But if the garden is perfect and people and things don't die and everything's good, then it kind of makes sense. There are a lot of references to things that haven't happened yet, and it kind of confused me because I wasn't sure if it was implying that the serpent and God don't live on the same like plane as Adam and Eve, where they are on a different sort of level where they experience time all at once or something, so they know everything. For example, God tells an Aesop's fable story. I think he tells a couple of them to Adam and Eve. The serpent jokes when it's raining, we'll have to build an ark, which in the Bible hasn't happened yet, obviously. Serpent talks about talking about children because eventually he tells Adam and Eve that they will have to procreate, and Eve is unsure about it. And Serpent's like, children are wonderful, they're a blessing, blah blah blah. I'm like, how would you know? There's no children have not existed yet. But a lot of it is very slow. It's a lot of day-to-day life, what Eve and Serpent are doing that day, and you know, they're just kind of doing things. Of course, they experience new things, but it's not, it's kind of things that you and I do, I guess. And so it's not very interesting. It is kind of at first to read about someone experiencing things for the first time, but you get over that after a while and it starts to become mundane and you're like, where is this going? Because I already know where this story is going. So what are we doing in the middle here? And I think that's what let me down the most about the book. I like the idea of taking something so well known and expanding on it and creating this world which hasn't really been thoroughly explored, but it didn't quite have anything to it in the end. It's kind of hard to talk about this book a little bit because we all kind of already know the story. And a lot of it, like I said, is just day-to-day stuff and the personalities that are kind of interesting. Like it's very interesting seeing God in this light that the book has depicted. I do want to warn people though, a trigger warning, there is rape in this book. There is kind of a twist. I don't like calling it a twist, but I guess that's the best word I can think of right now, as to why Eve eats the forbidden fruit, which I did like, and I thought that the characters really matured when they were discussing this situation that was happening. I don't want to give it away. There's not a lot of, like I said, there's not a lot of spoilers in this book. But I did like this aspect of it, and I thought it was different. Instead of it just being like, yeah, a woman's being tempted by the snake, she's a bad lady. I thought it was a little more mature in the plot of the eating of the forbidden fruit. It did have a very bittersweet ending. Obviously, as we know, their lives change forever at the end of this book, and you do kind of miss the comforting feeling that the garden gives you. When it's ripped away at the end, I was kind of like, no, let's go back. Let's just go back to being cozy and everything was good. Let's go back there. Okay, time for some stats for the garden. I give it 2 out of 5 stars. Sorry, it just wasn't that interesting. But I do appreciate the effort. Also, I just want to note really fast that I did look up the author when I was done with this book, and this is the only book she has ever had published. And when I looked into it, I realized that she had this book published when she was in her early 70s. And I think that's super awesome. So you go, Elsie. This book is 403 pages. The location of the book is fantasy. I know there is some discussion about the actual location of the Garden in Eden and where it could be located in current times. But I'm just going to say the Garden of Eden doesn't exist anymore if we think it existed. So I'm just going to say it's on Fantasy Island. And it was published in 2004.
Hey, I wanted to interrupt this video really quick before we get to the end. I made a playlist on Spotify and YouTube Music for this book. It's something I want to do for most books. I don't know if I'll be able to do it for every book because I think some books would be harder to kind of turn into a playlist in a way. But I did do it for The Garden, and I have it linked down below. So if you're interested in music, check it out. It's kind of all over the place in terms of some of it is just inspired by the feeling of the book, some of it is lyrical, some of it is just song title. So it's kind of all over the place in that sense. But I just thought it would be something fun to do. So I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much for joining me in this review of The Garden. I hope you'll hang out with me next time when I review The Bone People by Carrie Holm. Bye.